Good evening and welcome back to 31 Horror Nights. It's October 4th and tonight's classic is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Now, when we're talking about classic horror movies, this is one of the big ones, very influential in the slasher genre. Before there was Michael Myers, before there was Freddy Krueger, before there was Jason Voorhees, there was Leatherface. It was a very profitable and very controversial film, and I saw it and I'm gonna give this one a 6 out of 10. I can't think of anything that's technically wrong with it. It's scary, it's well directed, it's well acted, and it does have a satisfying enough ending, but man, is this not a pleasant movie to sit through. The plot is pretty standard for a slasher. There are 5 teenagers who are going to a place for vacation, and they get terrorized by a masked killer named Leatherface who uses a chainsaw. Now, I will give this movie that I did like the 2 main characters, Sally and her brother Franklin. I really like the interaction of the 2, I like the characters, and they're both acted pretty well. Sally and Franklin come off as very believable, very normal people, which I guess is helpful in a movie like this, to have something for the audience to latch on to when things get really, really gruesome. On that subject, I was kind of expecting this movie to be a lot more explicit in its gore than it ended up being. I was expecting to see, bloody mangled body parts and just, stuff flying around, but it's a lot more toned down than I was expecting. It's gruesome, you know what happens, and they don't really shy away from showing it to you, but it's not like a bloodbath the way I was kind of expecting it to be. I actually kind of think that was a good choice. Instead of the goriness, they focused a little bit more on the despair that the characters are feeling. And this is a very depressing situation that they get into. In case you for some reason don't know why Leatherface kills people, I'll save explaining that for the spoiler section, but needless to say, it's not pretty. I'm kind of struggling to think of things to say about Texas Chainsaw Massacre without really going into spoilers. It is pretty standard for what it is. It's a slasher movie. And a lot of the cliches that you see in slasher movies, like the survivor, the stupid people, the young kids going for a party, a lot of that was started in this movie. And this movie is very well done in the horror department. This is a very scary movie. I would not say this is for the faint of heart. But when you look at it at today's standards, even though it started at all, by now it's just sort of a standard slasher movie. It didn't really do anything wrong, but there isn't anything that special about it. If you like slashers, you'll probably like this. Just, you're not going to be having a lot of fun watching this one. Alright, now let's start talking about the spoilers. You find out that 2 of the characters you saw earlier in the movie, a guy who hitchhiked in the van that the kids were driving around, and the attendant to the gas station that they went to, they're both in on Leatherface's, murders and stuff like that. As it turns out, the 3 of them are, I don't know if they're explicitly family, but they act like the attendant is the father, and Leatherface and the hitchhiker are both, the sons. And the 3 of them are cannibals. They eat human flesh, and they decorate their house in very, very creative ways with the remains of humans. In fact, the iconic mask of Leatherface is not leather, it's the actual face of a person with parts of it cut out so you can see through. One thing that I will give this movie is a very scary image is that you see the normal person underneath the mask through the eye holes. You see that there's a regular person under there, but everything else about Leatherface's character design is just so not human that it's way too distracting. Leatherface does some chainsawing, and by the end there's only one teenager left alive, Sally, and she is brought to the house and she is tied to a chair, and then we have the very famous dinner scene in Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's really not that much, it's just her strapped to a chair watching the 3 family members, and the 4th one, she ran across 2 old corpses in the attic, and one of them actually turns out to still be alive. I don't know how, because he legit looks like he's rotting. They refer to that person as Grandpa, but he does move a little bit, and they're all eating human body parts in front of her, and she's screaming, and she's freaking out, and they're literally mocking her. They're making fun of her crying and whining. I think they wave dead body parts in front of her. It's a very, very unpleasant scene. I think the main reason why the dinner scene stuck so much with everybody who's seen this movie is that sort of cements more than anything else just how much this family does not care about the lives of a human. They will mock someone that they're about to kill just for being sad and crying about it. And throughout most of it, you can hear Sally crying and screaming. And I really have to give this actress credit. She can scream. I imagine that her voice was just like raw for days after that because she gave it everything that she had. One of the things that I don't know worked as well as they were kind of hoping it would be is that the camera zooms in unbelievably close so you can see directly into her eye. Like you see like the little veins on it, you see the details of the iris, and you see it like dart around the room. I don't know if that was quite as effective for me as it probably was for other people. I just thought it was kind of strange, to be honest. So they make it so that they like hand the grandfather, the corpse basically, a hammer, and he like very weakly tries to kill her with the hammer, and she manages to escape. And I was not expecting there to be any survivors in this movie, but when she gets out to the road, a truck comes by and runs over the hitchhiker, so now it's just Leatherface. And she manages to flag down a pickup truck that's coming by and get in the back of the truck, and they drive away. And the movie just stops right there. You don't figure out what happens afterwards. You don't really see what happens to her, like how she recovers from all this. It just sort of stops after seeing Leatherface freaking out and waving the chainsaw around. I was happy to see her make it in the end, but still, this whole movie was kind of hard to sit through, even though it did work and it was very scary. In conclusion, I don't want you to get the impression that I think Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a bad movie and I'm just giving it a higher score because it's supposedly a classic. No, it's not bad. It's just what it is, a slasher movie, and a pretty intense one at that. Slasher movies aren't exactly my thing, but I can see that for what it is, it's done well enough. It's a well-done slasher movie, not a whole lot more or less. By definition, it worked as a movie, but it wasn't really fun to sit through, and I don't really have any desire to see it again. Alright, that's it for today. I'll see you tomorrow.